Okay, guys, we are back with another video, and there was two things I wanted to talk about today, but I'm going to talk about the first one because it's just fresh on my mind, and it's pretty much a response to another comment on my opinion, because I honestly feel like my thing is, if everyone's allowed their opinion, right? I don't have to agree with everyone who watches my videos, and people can watch my videos and disagree. But what I don't like is when people have some sort of pretend to have some sort of let me just go back and explain. I think when it comes to the topic of abortion, what people don't realize is that I have truly examined both sides of the argument before coming to my own conclusion. And I've said this in multiple videos. I have to stand on an objective moral. I don't support subjective morality because subjective morality is what allows evil to persist in the world. Well, it's sometimes it's okay for this to happen, and sometimes it's okay for people to do this, and everyone just deciding based off of their own morals what is and isn't good in their own eyes basically just leads to chaos and people doing whatever they want whenever they want, and that's going to lead to people who have not as high morals doing more evil and people with higher morals not doing all the evil. But it's still allowing evil when you allow subjective morals to run or create laws around subjective morality. Anyways, the topic of abortion is always going to be a sensitive topic for a lot of people. I warn people very much in advance before watching my videos. If my opinion offends you, that's not my intention. A lot of people aren't going to agree. I know my stance on abortion is not the most popular stance. I don't care because at the end of the day, I'm standing on what I believe to be true. And it's not a belief that is just like, oh, it's only what I believe. I honestly feel like it's based off of just an objective logical perspective of what is actually happening. It's like people want to pretend it's something different than what I'm saying. I'm saying there's a lot of manipulation being used in the abortion industry. There's a lot of propaganda in the abortion industry, and I personally feel like I'm not falling for those things anymore. And I think this is my true honest perspective of it. I think a lot of women were convinced that they have to have the right to an abortion by years and years of propaganda, years and years of emotional manipulation, years and years of media telling women this is your right, it's healthcare, it's your choice, it's your body. All of these buzzwords and propaganda and all of these things is why so many women who believe abortion is their right, abortion is healthcare. You believe that because you were told to believe that. I was also told to believe that. I grew up in the exact same society as everyone else. I understand the other side of the argument because I actually have tried to understand the other side of the argument. What I differ is the other side of the argument to me does not hold an objective moral stance. And for me, I don't like that. I can't support someone saying, well, it's equally okay to kill a baby as it is to have a baby. To me, there is one where harm is clearly being done, and the other is supporting a life. It's just like you can straddle that fence all you want to, but for me, I'm not comfortable doing that. I'm not comfortable pretending like something I know is evil is not evil. Other people have convinced themselves it's not, right? You're convinced it's not because you've been told it's not. But the people who have woken up from all of that propaganda and all of that emotional manipulation, including women who have actually had abortions. There's a lot of people who are pro-life after having an abortion, by the way, because they recognize the harm that was done after they've had it, and they have to live with lifelong trauma. So this person basically made a comment saying that I don't actually believe abortion is murder because I'm not treating women who get abortions like they're murderers. And to this, I would say it comes down to I give grace to women who make that choice but might later regret it. And I also give grace to women out of respect and the understanding that there are a lot of women getting abortions that were coerced, that were forced, that were told that was the best decision, that were told it's just a clump of cells, that were lied to basically and gaslit into making that choice. I don't actively go out in the world and seek women who are getting an abortion and tell them they're horrible human beings, because I don't believe people are horrible because they get abortions. That doesn't change that I know abortion is evil. People don't understand that you can hate the action someone does and not hate the actual person, because so many people think you just have to hate people regardless of if you don't agree with them. You're just supposed to hate people. I also feel like there is obviously the whole legality situation. That's what pro-lifers are fighting against, right? I mean, you have two perspectives you can take on it. If you want to make a political argument, which I'm arguing from a societal argument, honestly, that we should have never allowed abortion because it is a crime against humanity. If you actually believe, well, the thing is, people argue over the semantics of everything else, but I really just think it's like the people who have the most to the people who have to do the most manipulation, in my opinion, is people who are pro-abortion, because you're supporting something that you know is actively ending the life of a innocent human being, but pretending it's not. And you're pretending it's not because you either devalue the life, you say it's not a life, it's a clump of cells, or you just pretend it has no value because it's not conscious, it doesn't have all these things. I'm like, these are all of the arguments you're making. To argue to be pro-abortion, you have to actively devalue the life of unborn children in the womb. What a pro-life stance does is gives value to the life of the child in the womb. This person basically said, I elevate the child over the mother. No, the life of the mother is equally as valuable as the life of the child in the womb. The child in the womb can't have life if the mother doesn't have life. If you support life, you support the life of the mother and the child. I don't understand why people act like we're just only pro babies. You have to be pro woman and babies in order to support children. It is women who carry children. You can't really support the life of a child without also supporting the life of the mother. This is why these nonsensical arguments, when people attack me with nonsensical arguments, it's really irritating because people often assume your stance on things because they are already biased to believe something about you as a person because you don't agree with them, and they have this assumptions they like to make about where you stand. Just because I'm not actively hating, I don't actively hate on or attack women who get abortions. I treat women who've had abortions with as much grace, love, and respect as I can. I don't agree with that choice. I do believe it is wrong, but as a Christian, I also believe there's forgiveness for that choice, for those who seek forgiveness, for those who actually regret it because they later recognize that they did something that harmed their own child. And I think there's a lot of women who actually struggle with that pain and with the trauma after that comes after having an abortion, because society is telling women that abortion is their right and this good thing for them. But then there's a lot of women who are like, well, I don't feel good after I actually felt like a horrible person, and I felt sick, I felt ill, I felt horrible. Like, a lot of women might feel that relief, that initial relief, like, oh, I don't have to worry about being pregnant anymore. But then a lot of women live, like, there's women, I've seen women comment on other people's videos talking about this, I kept this secret in my heart, and I've lived with the trauma and regret of this decision, that they got an abortion when they were young. They're in their 70s, 60s, 80s, saying, I regret this, I've lived with this dark secret, I didn't tell anyone. And you know, the judgment that those women are facing, people think it's because someone is pro-life. It's really not just because pro-life women exist. It's because you are going to eventually recognize the truth of an abortion when you make the choice to abort a child versus make the choice to have a child. You can't equally tell me a person giving life to their own child and loving and cherishing and respecting and valuing the life of their child is the exact same as someone who chooses to end the life of that child, never gets to meet them, never gets to hold them, never gets to care for them the way they do the ones that they chose to keep and handle. Because this person was bringing up, you know, well, there's women who have children and get abortions, right? And that's what I also was talking about. It was like, what makes the child that lives and the child that dies more or less valuable to that woman? Like, when you're pretty much cherry picking which of your children get to live, it's like, what is the basis for that? Anyways, I think what people need to recognize, the issue is the reason this issue is hard, I think the real point of contention is that people don't want to give up abortion because it serves them. It's a very selfish reason, a self-serving reason. You know, the reason most women want abortion is because they want an option to not have to care for their children. Based off of any reason. It's like people love to make it seem like it's just because of these really extreme or harsh circumstances. There are women who get abortions just because they can. It's really purely selfishness. At the end of the day, people are getting abortions because of selfishness. That is the root of all of this thing. If you cared about the life of your child, you would care about it enough to not end their life. I don't know how you can say I love and respect the life of my child and that's why I had an abortion. I just don't think that's love. I think love is sacrificing your own needs for the needs of someone else. Sacrificing your life for someone so someone else can have life. And sacrificing yourself to make sure that this person's needs are met. I don't think and I feel like this is where I get to the root of it, because I feel like following the logic of some pro-choice arguments objectively, it's not a world I want to live in, where people pretend like death is a loving option you can choose for another human being. That you're doing this out of love, out of care, out of respect for that person's life. If you respect and love and care about someone's life, you fight for them to live. You don't fight for them to die. And I also think at the end of the day, everyone getting an abortion was not aborted, right? I saw someone make this argument before. People, maybe it goes over their heads. It's like, the people who are successfully aborted don't get to say, hey, what happened to me wasn't okay, because you literally snuffed out their life, gave them no choice, gave them no option. They don't get to tell you whether or not they agree that was a great decision for them. You are making the decision to end someone else's life, a decision that wasn't even made for your own life, and then claiming you have the right to do so based off of never having experienced being aborted, right? So how do you actually know abortion is better for someone else, but you weren't actually aborted? It's like you're cherry picking. It's like you're making this assumption of abortion being good for another human being, even though it's an experience no person getting an abortion will actually ever have. How is that fair? It's not. Anyways, what was the other part of her comment? I guess really it was just like her saying that I don't truly believe it's wrong just because I'm not treating women like they're murderers. It's just like that's just because I'm a loving, respectful human being, and I wouldn't tell. It's like I can believe someone's actions are wrong and not hate them. And the truth of the matter is someone who gets an abortion, that choice does affect them and it affects their child, right? That choice, they're the ones who have to live with the consequences of it. They're the ones who do have to deal with the weight of that choice, right? So, objectively, I can recognize that someone getting an abortion does not directly affect me. But where I differ in my stance is that I don't think you get to tell someone that they can't not agree or disagree or call out something that they know is harming other people, or tell them they don't have the right to care, or they don't have to because it doesn't affect them, they don't have a right to have an opinion on it. It's just like we don't say that about any other issue that exists in the world. You know, it's almost like the people who are pro Palestine and they don't live in Palestine, they're not directly affected by the genocide happening, but they still care about it because they recognize that a harm and injustice is being done. That's why people are pro life. Just because I'm not personally affected by another woman choosing to have an abortion doesn't mean I can't recognize that the abortion industry is a genocide against unborn children, is a genocide against human beings in the womb. Um, and I think people can support their stances objectively, right? I don't need to convince someone to agree with me. That's not my heart. I honestly don't think I can. I don't think most people will be convinced of anything until honestly they have a heart change. At the end of the day, the root of what you believe is based off of where you get your morals from. If your morals come from whatever society tells you is good and this is normal and this is why we're supposed to support this, you're going to support whatever's popular. You're going to support whatever you're told you're supposed to support. You know, people support things. I can't tell you where you get your morals from. You know that for yourself. As a Christian, I get my morals from the Bible. I say that all the time. I always say I'm biased to my beliefs as a Christian. I don't hide or pretend to not have a bias. But I believe in what I believe in objectively, meaning the objective moral stance behind why I don't support abortion is I believe it is always morally wrong to end the life of an innocent human being. That applies to in my opinion, to those who get to babies that are killed in the womb via an abortion. It also applies to people on death row who did not commit the crimes and their lives are being ended. You know, it's like this an objective moral stance applies to any instance of when it's happening. It's like the moral objective goes far beyond just abortion. People don't deserve to be murdered when they're innocent, right? People who didn't commit a crime that deserves the punishment of death. It's not fair. That's not something I'm going to support. And I feel like people cherry pick when they want to apply morals because people are often hypocritical with their moral stances. That's where I guess this person misunderstands. My morals aren't changing just because I don't hate on women who get abortions. I still believe it's wrong. I still believe it's evil. I still believe the abortion industry as a whole is not good for women or obviously for children. I don't think an industry that profits off of children being killed in the womb is a industry I want to support at the end of the day. I don't know. It's like obviously we do have different morals. That's the root of almost any disagreement is your moral stances, what you believe about the world. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like in my opinion, people always have to find if someone disagrees with someone, they have to in their heads believe that person is not a good person or has some sort of other thing wrong with them. And I'm just like, we disagree about the issue because we have a different an obvious different perspective on the issue. You don't think the lives of children in the womb matter. I do. That's the honest difference between pro-life and pro-choice. One side says children in the womb are just as valuable as everyone else. We all start in this world as children, as a fetus, as a zygote, as whatever. I don't care what stage of life you start as. You are a life from when you are fertilized, the same life that you had as a fertilized egg is the same life you have after birth. I feel like when I honestly tell people, I'm like, your life is a miracle. Your life is precious. Your life is priceless. You can't buy your own life. I also think it's like the miracle of like, I don't care when people say, oh, it's just a clump of cells. We're all clumps of cells. At the end of the day, clumps of highly organized, highly structured, highly complex cells, by the way. Your cells, every single cell in your body consists of, when you break down the cell, it's like we are complex from the tiniest atom, and then when you expand out to how all of these cells come together and work to form these complex systems that are keeping you alive, keeping you breathing, keeping your heart pumping blood, processing as you take these food, like all of these processes in your body exist to keep you alive. And what I always argue too is like your most natural state is fighting for your life. You know, people fight to live. People don't fight to die. People are fighting to live. That's how precious and valuable life was. So how are we now fighting for death of other human beings simply because they're inconvenient to the lives of the mothers whose womb they exist in? I don't believe that's an objective moral stance that I can support personally, because I don't think it is fair. I don't think it's objective. I think it's really just saying like some human beings get to die simply because they're inconvenient to their mothers, but not because they actually did something wrong, not because them existing is a crime, just because the person doesn't want the responsibility of caring for them. I feel like that's the root of the issue, is what I can't support, because it's not objective. It's very subjective, and people are just picking and choosing what lives who gets to live and who gets to die based off of whatever circumstance or not being wanted. That's why I'm like, the root of it is really just selfishness. That's not an objective moral. That's just people can do whatever they want. But when people do whatever they want in other situations where you personally deem it to be wrong, oh, now we have an issue. When it's slavery, when it's genocide, when it's racism, oh, now we have a wrong, because people only want to see the wrong in things that they personally don't support. But when they support something that other people think is wrong, oh, suddenly, oh, you just don't understand, and you're small-minded, and you're doing that because, you know, some people have. I feel like people don't get mad at people who have lower, well, I honestly think, I'm not going to say what I was going to say, because I think that when it comes down to it, as a Christian, there is no such thing as a perfect person. Everyone falls short. Everyone makes mistakes that we have to ask God to forgive us for. Ultimately, what I'm telling you is what I believe is objective truth as a Christian, knowing that there is judgment for every choice that people make here on earth, that there is a judgment, that people will reap what they sow, and that without accepting Jesus into your life and asking him for forgiveness of your sins, that you are going to face consequences far beyond what you probably are prepared to handle. Because the Bible says every person will reap what they sow. And that applies to me and everyone else. I'm not a perfect person. I've made a lot of mistakes. I have literally shared so many stories of, you know, my problems and my failings and my shortcomings in life as a person. So I'm not standing here on some moral high ground just because I support. It's just like people people honestly don't sometimes have a hard time recognizing, like, you can believe something is wrong objectively and still not be a perfect person in other areas. I don't know. It's just like you don't have to be perfect to have a moral stance on something. I feel like what makes your moral stance hypocritical is to say you support something, say something is wrong in one situation, but then in another situation say it's okay. This person basically tried to call me a hypocrite for saying I didn't support abortion, because I said abortion, in my opinion, is just as wrong as genocide. It's just as wrong as slavery. It's just as wrong as the Holocaust. I feel like just because at some point society normalized something and says this is okay and this is legal, I feel like doesn't mean it's actually good morally. You know, slavery existed for hundreds of years before it came to an end. I feel like abortion can exist for hundreds of years, but eventually, I do think a moral stance of abortion being objectively wrong will exist again, because it's like as society moves towards belief in God, they get more moral. As societies move away from belief in God, they get less moral. Why? Belief in God encourages having more for people to have morals. And I feel like that's a lot of people's argument against religion, you know, the control aspect, but they don't realize it's not really God that is controlling your morals. It's the belief that your morals are objective, which objective morals don't exist without a moral objective, and God creates a moral objective. Without God, it's subjective morals. I think that's where people misunderstand, like, how religion isn't actually controlling. It's the belief in God that allows people to recognize, oh, this is actually wrong and this is actually right, and I could actually face consequences from a higher power than myself should I break this law. It's just like, it's the control. I mean, it only controls those who believe it at the end of the day. That's why people still commit all types of atrocities in this world, you know? I think if people objectively believed in God, you should see it in how they live their lives. They should live more moral lives than other people, because if you are holding the objective morals of the Bible to be the truth and the life and the way, you should want to follow those things. Which I often think is why it's just like when a Christians fail to meet the morals of the Bible, they get judged a lot more harshly than those who don't believe in God. You know, someone who doesn't believe in God and doesn't follow the morals of the Bible, no one's batting an eye at them. No one's saying, oh, you are horrible. I mean, actually, maybe people do. Cancel culture has always been a thing. But I think, like, it's always worse for those who claim to be Christians, because, you know, people can point out objective morals, or people often try to. The ironic thing about it is when you're actually a Christian, you recognize the only judgment that matters is God. So all the judgments other people have towards me, it doesn't even matter at the end of the day. This person being upset or angry about my opinion on the topic and trying to um, say my opinion's laughable and XYZ, that's just her showing that I honestly think, I don't know, why it angers people that you're pro life. I really think is because pro-lifers have a stance that is actually objective. And also, it's not even that I'm trying to make people feel wrong, it's just that I'm saying this is wrong objectively, and I'm using the most objective things I can say to make my point. It's not that I'm trying to say people are horrible people. It's really just saying I don't understand how more people don't recognize how evil abortion is. How people are so convinced that how people can be so convinced that abortion is okay. But like I said, I can still have empathy for a lot of women in those situations, because ultimately I also still know that I'm not perfect and I fall short. I'm not saying I am better than a person who has an abortion. I've never said that. I don't believe that. Um, but what I am saying is that I know it is wrong based off of the objective moral that killing an innocent human being is wrong. I also think, too, what no one ever argues against people who are pro life. Maybe I shouldn't say people never argue. I mean, people maybe have tried to argue this, but they can't argue it objectively. They have to argue it using semantics of, oh, is it viable? Oh, is it conscious? Oh, is it like using all these other aspects of. Anyways, basically, if you're pro-life, your stance is ending an innocent human being life in the womb is wrong, and you also are justifying that by knowing that every person on this planet existed in their mother's womb, and your life matters. No one killed you. Your life wasn't taken before you were born, right? It's just like the voice you have, the opinion you have, your ability to tell people, your life matters, but sit here and say people in the womb's life don't matter. It's not justified when every person on this planet existed in the womb before they were born. That's why, to me, it's not a rational or an objective argument to argue that it's okay to abort other human beings when you weren't aborted. I honestly feel like it's really simple to me. Personally, I feel like people complicate it because you have to complicate it. I mean, everything you have to do to convince someone they have the right to kill other people and that it's justified and that it's okay. You don't convince people of doing things that are evil by being objective. You do that by lying. You do that by devaluing lives. I feel like every single human atrocity that exists in the world starts with dehumanizing a class of people. And, that's what was done during slavery. They dehumanized black people and said their objects, their property, their lives don't matter. And that's the exact same thing some people are doing to children in the womb. They're clumps of cells. They don't have consciousness. They don't matter. They can't feel anything. They don't understand that they're being killed. Therefore, it's okay. I always argue with this. They might not, quote unquote, understand, but you understand. You know it. You know you're ending the life of that child. It's like, doesn't matter if a baby doesn't know you're killing it when you kill it, because you're still killing it. You're killing it. That's what makes it actually wrong. It's just like someone doing harm to another person, and that person, it doesn't understand they're being harmed. That actually makes it kind of 10 times worse. It's like you're harming that person, even if that person doesn't understand it's being harmed. Crazy way to argue something. Anyways, that's all I wanted to say. I stated in the beginning, honestly, I really just feel like I need to just keep comments off on my videos, because it's like I'm not here to argue with people. I'm really not. And I feel like I keep talking about it because I allow people to comment, and then I'm like, I have something to say to this comment. But anyways, I feel like I've said just about everything that I can on the topic at large, where basically I always say I've always stated I don't hate women who get abortions, even though I know and still believe abortion is evil and wrong. I pray for those women because I do have love and respect and care for people, women who get abortions. I don't hate them. I pray for them. I pray for them to find healing from that choice. I pray for them to find forgiveness from Jesus, from God, for that choice, because ultimately I do think it's an evil. I think abortion is evil. I think people who make those choices are either tricked, lied, or deceived into doing evil. And now there's people, I mean, what's the other argument? You can say, well, I know I'm killing my baby and I just don't care. I mean, and that's pretty much what we have normalized anyways. There's women who just brag about getting an abortions and saying, I don't care. Yeah, I killed my baby. I don't care. I mean, that's the world society you want to live in, where women are laughing and mocking and making fun of abortion and having abortions and getting abortions. It's just like, it's really just turning this world into a more evil place, in my opinion. So, yeah, that's all I have to say.